Okay, so welcome to our Share and Turning Time. We're up to the last Perek in Shmuel Aleph, Perek Lamed Aleph, and we were talking about how David HaMelech went back to Tziklog. He realized that in the time he was out with Achish, the Amalekim came and they took over his village and they captured all the women and children. He saved this Ish Mitzri who was dying because he was abandoned by this cruel Amaleki slave owner. He revived him, he showed him the way, they destroyed the Amalekim, took back all the shalal, rescued his wife and children, and he wrote checks to all of the moistus, he shared the loot with everybody. And now we're back on the scene where the Philistines are going to battle with Shmuel, with Shaul HaMelech. After Shaul was notified by Shmuel HaNavi, who was raised from the dead by this medium, this witch of sorts, this from Oiv, and he loaded and he let him know that your time is up. You were anyway demoted from being a king, and that you're going to die tomorrow in battle. And Chazal say that the fact that he went to battle, even though he knew he was going to die, was a ticket for things that he did before in his life. And we're up to Lamed Aleph. The battle is going on between the Plishtim and the Eden. Here you have a Novi if you want to follow inside. And the Jews were running away from the Plishtim. Har Gilboya is a very high mountain, and on top of the mountain there's the Eden are falling like flies. The Jews are falling. Vayadbeku Plishtim Eshol Vesbonov. The Plishtim are chasing after Shaul and his sons. Vayaku Plishtim Es Yonason Vesavinodov Es Malki Shua Bnei Shaul. 3 sons from Shmuel HaNavi got struck down. Vatichbad Amalchom El Shaul, and the battle is getting stronger and stronger. Vayimtzou Amoirim Anoshim Bakoshes Vayochel Moed Mamoirim. So there were these archers who were shooting, and they were getting closer and closer. And he was very afraid. Shaul told his arms bearers, pull out your sword and stab me. That these Arelim, the Pelishtim, are going to come and they're going to stab me, they're going to torture me, they're going to make fun of me. His arms bearer didn't want to kill Shaul, because he was afraid. You're not allowed to kill, first of all, you're not allowed to kill anybody, but definitely not Mashiach Hashem, somebody who was anointed a king. So what Shaul did was, Vayikach Shaul es achera vayipul aleo. He took his sword, he drove it into the ground, he put it on an angle, and he fell down upon the sword in order to commit suicide so that the Pelishtim shouldn't get to him. Vayad noisek heilav kimei Shaul. He saw that Shaul died. And we're going to see in the next Perek that he didn't die immediately. There was more to the story. So he also threw himself on the sword, and he died along with the king. All of the people who were close with Shaul and his immediate band, and with his immediate camp of people, all died in that day. But there were some that escaped. The Yidden saw what was going on, they were afraid. They saw that Shaul and his children died. So they escaped, they ran away, and the Plishtim take over the entire area. It's the next day. The Plishtim are going to plunder all the dead. And that's what happened after a battle. The next day, the Plishtim came, and you saw all of the dead, and you would plunder them. You would take away all of their arms and all of their clothing, and all of their jewels, whatever they had on them. They found Shaul and his 3 sons dead on the mountain of Gilboya. They cut off Shaul's head. They took off his gear, his arms, his uniform. They sent it around to the houses of their idols, of their avodah, and to all of the people to show how they won in battle. They took Shaul's arms, which obviously were the arms of a king, and they put it into the house of the Avodah Zarah, which is a deity called the house of Ashtaros. And his body tokul b'choimas Beishon. They crucified it on the wall of Beishon. So it's a very gory scene where they're decapitating the dead king and they're hanging up his body in order to humiliate him. Vayishmu Elav Yoshvei Yovesh Gilad. So the people of Gilad heard what happened. They heard how they disgraced Shaul. Now, always remember back in the story that the Chavre of Yovesh Gilad, they were from Shevet Binyamin, and they had Akaras HaToiv. They had gratitude for Shaul because he saved them from the Nochesh HaAmoni, from the king Nochesh HaAmoni. He saved them back when Nochesh HaAmoni said that he's only going to save them if they give him an eyeball. And we spoke about it. That was part of a battle strategy, that when you took over an enemy and you wanted to let him live, you would have them poke out the right eye. The reason being was because when you were holding arms, you held the shield with the left arm. So if you didn't have a right eye, then your left eye was blinded by your own shield, so you weren't able to actually participate anymore in the battle. And that was the way how you ensured. And that's when Shaul HaNavi came, and he knocked him out. So they had a Akaras HaToiv for Shaul. V'yakumu kol Ishchayil, all of the warriors from Yavesh, Vayechu kol halayla, they went the entire night. Vayikchu es Gvias Shaul, they saved the body of Shaul as Gvias Bonov Mechoim es Beishan. Vayavoyu Yavesha, they returned back in Yavesh with his body. Vayizirvu oisam shom, and they made a fire over there. They made a fire. It was like a covered for mesim that they used to make a madura. They used to make like a bonfire, and it was like a memorial, an honor when you made a fire for. It's like you would say, like you're making Lag BaOmer. You make when the madura is Reb Shimon Bayecha, you make a fire. Vayikchu es atzmuiseyem. They took the bones, because the body never it decomposed. They buried it in Ir Yavesh under a eshel. It's a type of a tree. They fasted for 7 days, and at night they would eat. But for 7 days they fasted to mourn on the bizoyon that happened to their hero Shaul HaMelech. And that's the end of Shmuel Aleph. Now, there really is no such thing as Shmuel Aleph. There's no such thing as Shmuel Aleph and Shmuel Bais. Really, there's a Sefer Shmuel. The Christians, when they divided up Nach, they made Prakim, and they also divided up Shmuel Aleph and Shmuel Bais, and they decided that after Shaul died, and after the story of David HaMelech continues, that's Shmuel Bais. So that's why, Mitzvah Hashem, when we're going to finish the entire Sefer of Shmuel, Mitzvah Hashem should help, we should make a siyam. But it was still divided that way, so it restarts again in Perek Aleph. L'chaim, l'chaim. Hashem should give us strength that we should connect the message of the Nevi'im and everything that it has to teach us.
It's the other also. It's 1 month other. The other also is 1 month other.
I hear you. It's a long month other. I hear you. Vahi achrei Mois Shaul, was after the death of Shaul. V'David Shav.
How come they did that with Shmuel? But then go to the other.
I think because it's just a long sefer. It's just long, and practically speaking.
Oh, your Shai is pretty long. Your is pretty long.
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know why only by Shmuel they divided it up.
From the Christians.
Yeah.
I think we should put it together again.
We are. We're doing it right now. Come along, Rabbi Tzai. He achrei Mois Shaul v'David shav me'akois eso Amalek v'yeshev David b'Tziklag. So now the scene shifts back to David. V'yeshev David b'Tziklag, and David came back to Tziklag. Wow. Gewalt. Chaim, du hast du. Hast? So now the scene shifts back. So Shaul dies, But David was going on his own. It was on his own story. He was just finished with Amalekim, and he returns back home, and he saved his family. So Vahi Bayoim Ashlishi V'hinei Ish Bo Min HaMachne Me'im Shaul. This Amaleki guy shows up to the Machna, to the camp of Shaul. Ubegodov Kiruyim V'Adama Al Roshoi. The camp of David, Camp David. He comes back to Camp David, and his clothing are torn, they're ripped. There was dirt on his head. He bows down to David as a sign of honor. Where are you coming from? I escaped from the camp of the Jews.
I think that David is in Ziklag at this point.
David is in Ziklag. He's back in Ziklag, but he doesn't know what's going on. He has no idea what's happening with the battle of the Plishtim, because
you know that David HaMelech is now in Plishti territory.
They know he ran away from Shaul, which is the point of why this guy came, because this guy we're going to see soon in the story. This guy, this Amaleki guy who shows up, he knew that David was an enemy of Shaul, and now he wanted to become good with the new king. He wanted to be on his good side, and he wanted to do him a favor. He wanted to come for him a little. And David said, I'm sorry, he said, I escaped. I saved myself. What's the story? Tell me what happened. He said, the reason why the Jews fell was because they escaped, they ran away. And many of the people died. Shaul and Yonasan died. Now if you remember, Yonasan is David HaMelech's best friend. Twice he made a pact with him that his best friend Yonasan, who saved him so many times, he died. Come along. Say when you go on a journey, now we're on the journey along with this Amaleki who's coming to David. And David tells this Ish Amaleki, how do you know that Shaul and Yonasan died? I was there. I was actually going on my own way. And I saw that Shaul was on his sword. But it seems like that when he fell on his sword to kill himself, he didn't actually die right away. Now, the enemy from the Plishtim were closing in. They were getting closer. And Shaul turned around and he saw me. And he saw that I'm not a Plishti because I didn't have a sword and I didn't have arms. Vayikra Eli calls me, Vayomer Hineni. I say, I'm here. Vayomer li mi ata, who are you? Which city are you from? Are you an enemy? Are you with me? Vayomer Elav Amaleki Onorchi, I'm Amaleki. Vayomer Eli, Ameod no Eli Moiseseni. Finish me off. He tells Amaleki, finish me off, kill me. Ki achazasni ashovetz, because I've begun like shivering and shuddering, I'm going to die. Ki chol oid nafshi bi, while I'm still alive, kill me, so that the Pelishtim shouldn't get me and torture me. Shaul is telling Amaleki. Now, it's just, again, I can't tell you pshatim, I didn't learn enough of the Mefarshim, but the whole story is like so ironic, because Shaul loses the whole Malucha because he didn't listen to Hashem to kill out Amalekim. He leaves Agog. And this was his downfall. And it says, Vayachmoil al Amalek. He had chemla. He had chemla on them. He had compassion on them. He had pity on them. We know that the whole story of Haman, just to want to make a connection between Adar and Shmuel Hanavi, it's that the whole reason why we have Haman was because the Gemara tells us that Agog, that night that he was left alive until Shmuel came and killed him, he impregnated this Shifcha, he impregnated this slave, and that's how the seed of Amalek survived. But he had Chemla on Amalek, on Meitav Atzoin V'Abakar. And here at the end of the story, you hear him asking Amaleki to have chemla, to have pity on him, to do what? To kill him. And we just read before in the last Perek that David found this Ish Mitzri lying on the field for 3 days that he was starved. And he asked this Ish Mitzri, what are you doing? And he told that the Amaleki slave owner was so cruel that when he got sick, he just left him on the field. He abandoned him on the field without food and water, and he just left him there to rot to death. He didn't even have the compassion, quote unquote, to kill him. Kill the slave. Don't let him starve to death. It wasn't like the Nazis, like they wouldn't waste a bullet. They would rather leave you because the bullet was more important to them. He wouldn't even kill him. And then he saved him. But over here in the story, it's the end of the story of Shaul of having chemla on Amalek is that he's begging Amaleki to kill him. So this Amaleki tells him, so I stood up and I killed him. Not because I hated him, I knew that he's not going to survive, he's not going to live, so I killed him. So that's what Amalekim have chemla on. When they have chemla to kill you. If you're a slave and you get sick, they'll let you rot to death. If you beg him, please kill me, for that they might have compassion on you to actually kill a Jew. But it wasn't only that. I took his tefillin. Pashup Pshat is, it means like a jewel, like some type of a golden chain or a crown. But Chazal say that it means he took his tefillin, because if you look in the words, it stems. I took the tefillin shel rosh and the tefillin shel yad, al yadoi. And I brought it to my master right now. Why? Because he wanted to be on his good side. So he brought him. He was assuming that if he's going to bring him, and he's going to notify him that his enemy died, plus he brought him his tefillin, like he's giving it over to him, he's going to be on the good side of the king. Especially if he's an Amaleki and David just killed out all the Amalekim, it's good to be on the good side. He grabs onto his clothing, David HaMelech, and he tears it. Everybody was with David, rips kriya. Now again, I want to just go into this again. It's so important to go into this nakuda of the story. All of the people who ripped kriya on Shaul were people who were persecuted by Shaul. There were people who ran away from him. David HaMelech was surrounded at the end of the story by 600 people. 400 of them were Ish Asher Umaras Ruach, people who were depressed, people who were escaping from the regime of Shaul, who ran away. And when they heard that Shaul HaMelech was killed, they ripped kriya and they mourned him. You have to understand that David HaMelech understood that, and Chazal themselves were very compassionate to Shaul, because even in Pashup Pshat in the story, he was a tzaddik who was forced into a reign, forced into a leadership position that he didn't choose. He never wanted it, and he wasn't cut out for it. You have to understand, when sometimes people fall into situations and they didn't ask to be in the situation and they were thrust into it, you have to take them with a grain of salt.
The thing is, I can say for a second, is the way you document this. This is our first king, right?
First official king.
Everything about it, no filters.
Correct. Chazal are the ones who put context into it to help us make sense out of the story, because even in the unfiltered version, or the unadulterated version of it, he was forced into it. It's in the psukim. He didn't want it. He never wanted it. Now, David HaMelech knew he's the Mashiach Hashem, because Shmuel HaNavi anointed him. He knew that he's the Mashiach Hashem, and he knew that it's all a script from Hashem. He knew that at the end he's going to make it. He knew. Because Shmuel HaNavi anointed him that he's the king. So whenever he had opportunities to kill Shaul, he just accepted it. He said it's all from Hashem. And this, he had tremendous respect. You have to understand, Shaul was also his shver. At least his ex-shver, until he took Michal and he gave her away to Palti ben Lish, like we learned. Anyway, he ripped kriya. ויספדו ויבכו ויצומו עד הערב על שאול ועל יונתן בנוי ועל עם השם ועל בייס ישרול כי נפלו בחרב. So he sits there and he mourns him and he cries and he fasts. And on the death of Yonatan his son, and on the Gedolei Ador, and the Bais Yisrael, everybody who died. Where are you from? Where are you from? He asks this Amaleki guy. Now, up until now, when he asked him, he said he's Amaleki. Now he asked him, which place are you from? I'm a son of an Amaleki ger, which means my father converted whatever conversion meant in those times, that he came to live with the Jews, and I keep Torah mitzvahs. But again, this is all in context that when you get the idea that Hashem said initially to show, he said, I need you to destroy the Amalekim. And it says, Vayachmo alameita v'atzmim v'abokar, and Shmuel Navi said, Hine shamoya mizevach toiv lehakshiv michel vayelim. He said, Hashem says, Folgen is more important than you bringing all of these sheep and all of these sacrifices. I don't need Amalek. Amalek is something which has to be eradicated. It's a certain klipa which we can't allow it to remain. So when he came, he said, I'm a son from a ger. But the Amalekim can't become gerim. They're not, I don't know how to say it, they're not convertible. They're not gerable. Their klipa is such that they can't, a goy could become a ger. An Amaleki can't. But he was playing, at least, that he's a shomer Torah mitzvahs. Vayomer elav David, and David tells him, if it's true that your father was a ger, and you're abiding by our Torah, you're obeying the Torah, how are you not afraid to lay your hand on the anointed one from Hashem? Now, first of all, Torah, you don't kill anybody. You know, it's like assisted suicide. This is like the first assisted suicide documented in the Torah, where someone asked for assisted suicide. Whenever the controversy of assisted suicide comes up, here's the makod where somebody asked for assisted suicide.
Didn't we learn before that he fell on his own sword?
Right, so Shaul fell on the sword, but he didn't die yet. He fell on the sword, but he was like bleeding to death. And he asked him, finish me off. That's an assisted suicide. Somebody who's chronically ill or terminally ill, and he's saying, finish me off. He's asking for assisted suicide. And here in the Psukim and Nach, David HaMelech told this Amaleki, who's out of compassion killing him, he says, Zelo vet kacha. In our Torah it says, we don't kill. And you don't kill even somebody who's going to die. And even somebody who's going to suffer. You have to alleviate his suffering, but not through killing him. So it's two things. First of all, you killed someone. Second of all, you laid your hands on the Mashiach Hashem, on a king. It's like a double thing. He said, go hit him and kill him. For this Amaleki kid. The sin of the blood which you spilled is on your head. Now I'm asking you, I want to just go off on a side exit. We'll come back on the main road very quick. Wouldn't you say it's compassionate to help somebody who's begging you and saying, I don't want to be humiliated. I don't want them to torture me. I don't want to, how do you say spet? I don't want them to scorn me, to make fun of me.
He made a decision. He was very smart.
He said, I want you to finish me off. And here is ridicule, exactly. I don't want you, Shaul was afraid that they're going to ridicule him. And he said, finish me off, I'm dying anyway. And this Amaleki goes, and he has compassion, and he finishes him off. But, this goes into I'm going to give you a bad muscle, but it's not a bad muscle, it's far out, but just you should understand the context. Sometimes in life, when it's destined in the script that you need to suffer, you need to suffer. It means you have to go through the process in order. It's like, the story of the caterpillar? There was this father who had this kid, and he brought him, these ant farms. They have these little ant farms. He bought him a caterpillar enclosure where you can actually see the development of how a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. So it comes with this caterpillar, and it makes a cocoon, like this white silk cocoon, and then it develops into, so this kid is watching the caterpillar, and then one day it turns it sews itself up or covers itself up in this cocoon. And then he's watching it every single day, and he sees how this caterpillar is struggling to leave this cocoon. It's struggling to leave. So he has rachmanas. He's vayachmoid. He has rachmanas on this caterpillar. So he goes and he takes a razor and he slices open the cocoon so that the caterpillar should be able to escape free. He takes out the cocoon, slices it open, the caterpillar goes free. He takes the caterpillar. It doesn't take more than a few hours, and this glob of undeveloped butterfly dies. And he's devastated. He cries. His father comes home and he says, "What happened?" He says, the caterpillar died. He said, "Died? Well, how did it die?" Bottom line is, he tells him he tried to assist it. But from assisting it, he killed it. Because if you want to develop, a caterpillar needs to develop, it has to go through the struggle of fighting to leave in order to develop itself, and that's what makes beautiful butterflies. Beautiful butterflies are created only through struggles of a caterpillar who goes through this metamorphosis that he turns into a beautiful butterfly, and then it flies and it's like beautiful and it's like a wow and there's all these colors, but it only goes through the struggle. When you assist somebody and you save him from going through the process, you kill them. It's like Chazal say, Noshim Rachmani is Bishlu Yaldeim, like it says in Eicha, Noshim Rachmani is Bishlu Yaldeim, that compassionate woman boiled or cooked their children. So the pun on it is that Noshim, that woman, Rachmani is through their Rachmanis on their children, where they take away from them responsibilities, and they don't make them man up and do what they need to do. That's how they kick their children. That's how you kill children. If you want to create a child who's going to grow up an invalid, take away the pressure, take off responsibilities, give them everything they want, take them all the time. Whenever they want something, give it to them, and you'll develop a glob of an undeveloped caterpillar, which is going to never have a chance to fly and protect itself. And it's part of development is that you got to go through the pain. You got to go through it. What?
The struggle builds the muscle.
The struggle builds the muscle, right? You struggle, no pain. They say in exercise, it's no pain, no gain, right? That's the world of bodybuilding. No pain, no gain. You got to take it like a man. You know? Stimmt? Emes?
Sure.
Chaim.
Love pain, huh?
They know. Een man gegeven, dat weiß niet. So the trip over here is that this Amaleki is going to assist in the suicide of Shaul. But in Yiddishkeit we say the process of dying is the process of turning into a butterfly. It means the world, we don't, like the Rebbe Rayatz and Lubavitch, is a story where this Russian interrogator wanted him to spill the beans on all of his network. He had, hundreds or thousands of chassidim that he sent around on shlichus in Russia, and the Rayatz was like blank. So he took out a gun, and he pointed it at the Rayatz, he put it to him, and he said, "See this toy? This toy made many a man speak." It's a technique. It's like they say, Al Capone said that a good word is very nice, but a good word with a gun works better. So that's shit in the paskim. It's a good word with a gun, arbet besser. So he points the gun at him and he says, "This toy," so the Rayatz told him, he said, this toy only works on people who have one world with many gods. Meaning, if you have one world or one existence, one place to be, where your consciousness exists in only one place, but there's many gods or there's many things that you want in life, so if you're going to be removed from this one world, you're going to lose all of the things that you want in life, so it makes you talk, because you'd rather talk and stay alive. But for somebody who has one God with two worlds, knock me out. Make me a butterfly. Make me a butterfly. Let's go. Make me a butterfly. Butterfly me. Want a butterfly? Butterfly me. What? Butterfly me. Make me a butterfly. Let me fly. I'll walk out of this existence and I'll go into a new realm of reality and I'm good. So I'm going to talk what? So when we're talking about dying, we say we have to do everything in our world to stop people from suffering, but not by killing them. Not by killing him. When it's time for a person to leave, he leaves. He has to leave when it's time for him to leave. We don't assist people in leaving. You have to go through whatever you got to go through in order for your development. Later, after you assisted him to die, after you assisted him to die, then what's dich, as I was an undeveloped butterfly. I was in the process of becoming a butterfly, aber die hast mich geschnitten. I'm like him. ויקרא דוב לך מלאר ויאמר גשר ויאמר דמך ראישך כי פיך אונו וחולמר אנוכי מויסתי. You yourself said I killed him as Mashiach Hashem. And they killed him. Now, even though there wasn't Adam, there were no witnesses, and a person can incriminate himself, but there was also a political move over here that David HaMelech was establishing. He was going to become king now. He established it right away in the beginning. You don't touch a king. He established it on this Amaleki guy who messed with Shaul. He killed him, and his people knew that David is boss, and you'd never ever lay your hands on a king for no reason, even if he begs you to. King is boss. Now Shaul's whole opinion was that he never wanted to be the king. David took it over and he made a new thing. I'm the boss. I'm king. So David makes a kina. So this is going to be a shtickle poetry, and whenever we get to poetry in the Torah, it's hard to connect to it. It's just a different way of language. But come along on the message behind it. Vayomer, and he said after Shaul and all of the mighty warriors of the Yidden died. Vayomer lelamed bnei Yehuda koshes. I want to teach the children of Yehuda to go on with their bows and their arrows. Hine ksuva Sefer HaYashar. It's written in Chumash Bereishis, which is called Sefer HaYashar. It says there, Yehuda ata yeducha achecha yotcha ba'oref oivecha. When Yaakov Avinu gives the blessing for Yehuda, he says, Yehuda, you're the guy who has the hand on the neck, on the nape of the neck of your enemies. So he says to the Bnei Yehuda, to the Jews who are in the region of Yehuda, he says in Bereishis, it says, the people of Yehuda, you have your fist, your hand. I need you to stay strong. Got Tzvi Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael, which is called Tzvihi L'chol Ha'arotzos. It's like a deer. Eretz HaTzvi. It's the land of the deer. It's the land which stretches. It's the land which has miraculous capacity. Alba Moisecha Cholo. Could it be that on your high places like Hare Gilboa, which was a high place, that the warriors should have fallen? Weak people, when they're on top of a mountain, they're in a position of strength. How could it be? How could it be that the mighty warriors like Shaul and his children who were on the strategic lookout from the top of a mountain, that they fell? Al tagidu begas. Now, even though the Plishtim knew about it, but like the worst part, and we saw it before, that when they returned from war, David and Shaul, the girls, the women, used to go out and they would sing, David, Hika Shaul, Ba'alaf of David B'Rivoisov. Shaul killed thousands and David killed tens of thousands. So the girls, the women would go out and they would like celebrate. So the celebration and the mourning was done by the woman. The man, he was the warrior, he was a strong guy. The woman was the one actually making the party or crying. So he said, Al tagidu begas, al tevasru b'chutzes Ashkelon. Don't go around sharing what happened here to Shaul and Yonasan. Pentis machna b'nois Plishtim. The daughters of the Plishtim are going to celebrate. We don't want them to celebrate. Pentalezna b'nois ha'arelim. The b'nois ha'arelim, the daughters of the Fashtapter, of the Arelim, of the Plishtim, of the uncircumcised, they're going to be celebrating. Don't go share our downfall. And here he curses the mountain that allowed for such a downfall. That was another way how people would express their mourning. They would express their sorrow and their pain as they would curse the place where the tragedy befell. And he said, Hareg b'Gilboa al ta'ov al motar aleichem. No rain should fall upon you. Uzdei terumois, and your field shouldn't even produce enough wheat that you should be able to bring from it teruma, chalok, isham nigal, mogen giboyim. Once upon a time, the way you went to battles, you had a shield. The shield was made from leather. The leather used to be smeared with oil in order to keep it pliable. And if something hit it, it's like slid off. That's how you had Teflon. It was like a Teflon shield when it was oiled. if the oil dried up, then the shield would crumble. So there was like a metaphor that he said, Ki shom nigal mogen hagiboyde mogen shol b'li Mashiach b'shomen. That's the place where the shield of Shaul ran dry from its oil and it crumbled. Midam chalolim u'mechelev giboydim keshes yoynesen le'noseg ochel v'cherev Shaul le'soshev reikem. From the blood of the fallen, from the fat of the mighty, the arrow, the bow and arrow of Yonasan, and the sword of Shaul never returned. They always would march on. They would never be afraid. They would always keep on going. They never got intimidated by challenges. They were the ones who never ever went backwards. Shaul v'Yonasan, and here's where this famous line comes from. Whenever you go to Spedim, you hear this. They were beloved and they were na'im. They were connected. In their lives, in their death, they weren't separated. They were lighter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. B'nos Yisrael, daughters of Israel, El Shaul b'chena ma'bishchem. Cry on Shaul. He was the one who clothed you. When he would go to battle, he would bring back the loot. He was the warrior. He used to bring back all of the chalal. He would bring back clothing. Shoni im Adonim, he would bring back red clothing. Im Adonim hamala adi zol alavushchem. They would bring fancy clothing with jewelry. He would bring back all the spoils of war to all the women. That means the warriors would come home and they would capture the loot, and that they would have gifts for their wives. So he was telling all the women, weep, because the warrior and his children who always took care of you and beautified you have been smitten and they've fallen down. How could it be that the mighty like Yonasan fell in the Milchama? How could it be that you, Yonasan, on this mountain, that you knew it, that you should have fallen chalal, that you fell dead on this mountain? This is another famous line which was adopted from Nach. I have pain for you, my brother. Now he's telling it to Yonasan. Yonasan, you were very dear to me. Your love was so strong upon me, more than the love of women that have to their husbands and to their children. A woman has love to her husband, and a woman has love to her children naturally. Your love to me was stronger than the love of a woman to her husband, to her children. That's what the Chazal say, that, Ahavas David v'Yonasan ain't tluy b'davar. Tremendous love. How could it be that the mighty Shaul and Yonasan fell by Yoivdu Klei Milchama, and they lost their battles of war? And that's the kino, that's the hesped that David mourned on Shaul and on Yonasan, that Shaul was his arch enemy and his shver who made his life miserable, and Yonasan was his best friend. He gave a hesped on both, and all of the people who went through whatever they went through and escaped from Shaul mourned him, because they were at that place where they realized that everything is from Hashem. And that Shaul, even though there's many times people in life that antagonize you and make your life miserable and you hate them, David teaches you that even the person who antagonized them, he still understood that it's like, there's a Torah, I once heard, you have to be done a person with a kaf sechos. So the question is, why does it say a kaf? I think I heard it from Pnei Menachem, from Gerer Rebbe Pnei Menachem. Havadonas kol adam lekaf schos. He said, why do you have to be done a person? Havadonas kol adam leschos. What does it mean, a kaf sechos? A kaf in Yiddish is a chef level, a ladle, kaf. When you take out soup with a ladle, even though you want to take out the kneidel, but it's a kimpmet. When you want to be done a person, you have to see him with a kaf sechos. You have to take him with the whole ladle. You have to see the whole story of the person. You have to say, arega. Where's he coming from? Where's he going? Who did he marry? What was his upbringing? What's the situation? What's his intelligence level? What's his wife? If you want to be done a person the kaf, if you want to be done a person the schos, you have to use a kaf sechos. You have to take the whole picture. David HaMelech took the whole kaf sechus. Even though it's a moiradika limit, if you want to know why David Melech is so chavakayim, because David is a mishenadika personality. He's a person who's being persecuted, but he's still seeing the goodness and the kindness and the nekudas toivas in Shaul. He's not, because he's being antagonized, he doesn't make a blanket statement to tear the whole person down. Could you imagine how enlightened we would be if the people who bother us in our life, we would be able to see them the way David saw Shaul? We would be enlightened beings. We would be able to say like, wow. We would live in a whole different type of a universe. We would be able to say, wow, this person has a lot of good. He has one chip that's miswired. Okay. But he's still a good person. It's still that when he dies, I'm still going to mourn him. Could you imagine what an amazing madrega that is? It's crazy.
Unbelievable.